Welcome back, audience. Hope you're doing good, as always. It's almost Friday, right? Wednesday's like a new Friday. What a delicious talk. Okay. Yum, yum, yum. Let's begin. I wonder what's going to be like today. I gotta share something with you. There's just like a little more calibration that, I mean, man, the whole life is almost about this calibration thing. The it's just like a calibration and the performance, and then calibration again and the performance again. Calibration, performance, and everywhere you look in life, it's going to be about that. We're calibrating, we're performing, receiving feedback, calibrating again, performing, receive. Ideally, if we do that, shut your fucking mouth. It's not a mouth, it's some sort of trombone. Ugh, I don't like it. I don't like it. Anyway, I'm going to win anyway. Okay, so what was I saying? Right. The calibration, performance feedback, recalibration, performance feedback. It's like the whole life is about this, like the whole essence of the game, it seems. And the game is, of course, just to fulfill our desires. But, like, we're also, like, in this multiplayer, seemingly multiplayer video game, right? And how do you not become a puppet master? Because I know Neville Goddard was teaching people about saying nobody has a free will in your reality. Um, you know, you're the only operant power, and there's a lot of things that he said like that. But this is a bit of a slippery slope there. Ultimately, it is true, with one limitation, which you must respect. If you do not respect that, you become one operate power as a point of evil operating power. Because if you are a person like certain type of person in power, acting great, doing well, and but then losing the power, getting to the head, and now acting like a douche. And this I'm talking about, of course, Trump. Started great, now got to his head, and is having a challenge. We'll see if he's gonna overcome this and humble himself and understand that he's not the sole operating power in the sense that he's trying to approach. Okay, this is what I've been also handling and calibrating within myself, because there's that dilemma. If we are only operating power in the reality, what's the difference between being a tyrant and a benevolent creator, if you like? Okay, because both may take that view, say, like, I'm the only operating power, but there's a difference there, and the difference is crucial. And I want to talk about this difference today. That little, you know, angle that in a diamond is supposed to be perfect to reflect the light correctly. So when you take a notion like that you're the only operating power, it's very dangerous. Because ultimately, yes, it is true, but like I said, with one limitation. So you're the only ultimate power to create a certain themes and roles to fulfill your desires. Things, themes, roles. You're like a writer of the script, right? You're the only writer, for example. There's no other writer. And if you take this view, this is correct. You're writing the script. Now, going a little bit further into uniqueness rather than universality, right? So when we go to the universality, yes, you are the only operant power from the point of universality. You have the full jurisdiction of creating states of consciousness, and creating themes and roles, like I said, and things within those um, realities that you want to experience. In that sense, you're operating power, but you're not making anyone specific to fit that role yet, because you just wrote the story, so to speak, right? And now what? Now, a certain type of souls or people going to fit into those roles, right? That's the point where you need to sort of like let go of this idea I'm the only operating power, right? The limitation is the free will, okay? Because if you break the free will, then you become a tyrant. And then you go into the dark way of doing magic and creating through friction, and you creating through hate and insistence and anger and all these kind of things. The feedback may be already from the realities like, no, this is not happening. This person is not playing this role. You can feel this immediately. And then the idea is like, well, let me just break that. Let me break that and make that person fit the role. Okay, well, nobody wants to work with this type of writer or director, okay? It's like you're forcing the creation. But you gotta look from the perspective of the the souls who are going to step into the roles that you created. They may not be ready, like it's casting side, right? You don't know who's gonna fit the role. There's someone's gonna fit that role perfectly that you wrote, right? But you cannot be the one sort of forcing people to fit that role. That's why I like the way Marlon Brando approached acting. He said, like, the exact script is nonsense. Because when you're creating a piece of art, you cannot um, extinguish or eliminate the spontaneity and the uniqueness in the process of the creation. This is why he went by the cue cards. The cue cards would tell him exactly like thematic of that particular interaction between two people, or interaction in general. He would know the thematic, and then he would operate from the thematic, allowing spontaneity to choose the words to create that sentence that is very organic and real. And that's what is essentially the difference between him acting and somebody else. Um, in a streetcar named Desire, you saw that approach basically used, and the director was genius to let Marilyn to do that, because most directors would hate working with him. I mean, according to him, and it's because of this particular reason. They said like, well, he's difficult to work with. No, you're just being too tyrannical and insistent of how exactly that movie has to come out. Right? You need to allow the spontaneity to be there. Yes, you have to be a director and you say like, no, these are the roles. This is a thematic. That is non-negotiable. That side is non-negotiable. But the uniqueness and how it's going to be filled in, you gotta let this to an actor. You see? An actor who is like Marlon Brando. Okay? And this is why Marlon was only able to work with the directors who gets him. And so say and he would say like, you're the director. That's your role, and that's your thematics, cue cards, the overall vision, the plot, and everything. You go ahead, be in charge of that. But don't tell me how to act that particular line, how to behave in that moment. I will find it how to behave in that moment. It will come to me. That you do not direct. Okay, so there's this relationship between the good director and the good actor, that each one respects its jurisdiction, and each one has its own creative freedom that does not infringe upon it each other. Okay, so that's it. Like, and I respect Marilyn a lot for that, but Marilyn in later years, he pushed a little bit too much. He pushed into infringing even the creativity of the directors, right? Like, and that's when he, you know, he you see what I'm trying. He pushed too much. But anyway, besides the point. It's not a secret that guy pushed too much, man. Uh, but his golden years was back then, when that was still kind of fresh and new and everything. Anyway, what I'm trying to say here is that's the difference, right? If you play the director role, if you're the sole operating power, you got the limit. Because if you do not have the limit, you do not respect the uniqueness, because you are just respecting universality but not uniqueness. And you have to respect both sides. And again, this is, you'll be able to do this through the liminality. And there's that, you gotta go by the feel. Okay. So if you created the role and say, like, well, this is what kind of relationship I want to have, or relationships, or this is what kind of business I want to have, or this is whatever you want to create, right? But you don't cross the line on who exactly needs to play that role, right? Or you allow the spontaneity there to be there, and you have to have certain level of trust that that genius is going to be somehow um, manifested for you. Okay, and so just like in casting, for example, you may meet the person that it kind of fits the role, but they're not available exactly. Well, then what are we going to do? Is it like, well, the person kind of fit perfectly, what am I going to do now? I'm going to force that person to do this? You can, but you're going to go into the other way, right? And it's a dark way of manifesting. Now you are dealing with like a negative feeling. You're not creating from the positive feeling, but you're creating from the negative feeling. And you can do that, but that's the dark way. That's dark magic. And the universe allows this to happen, right? And this is why it relies upon you as an individual soul to choose the pattern that is correct for this, because if it wasn't be allowed for that to happen, then the problem would not exist at all, right? But because it's allowed for it to happen, you individually have to create that internal boundary within yourself. Okay, and that is a type of growth. Okay, because you came across a just boundary that you must sort of like, if you want to continuously create things in your life, soul desires that are sustainable, it doesn't crash, or create a lot of pain and suffering for you and other people, you see. And this is, I've noticed a lot, um in me, of course, and watching other people. And that's like especially with the relationships and all that twin flame, nonsense and whatever, and I was watching other people, and I learned about myself by watching other people too. It's like, oh my god, like, because the connection may be so strong that you say, okay, the connection is there, it is strong, there may be love there even, but the person is not engaging with you, right? That's exactly the pattern that it's living through, like this toxic twin flame belief system. And twin flame, that you see what I'm trying to say. It is about learning that boundary, learning to understand that, because if you go in there and say like, well, that must be happening now because it is right, it feels right, the person not available, I don't care, I'm just going to make the specific person, I'm going to manifest specific person. This is why most of these specific person manifestations are dark and evil, and they all crash, all spells, and they make person obsessed about you and all that stuff. You can do that. These are all derived from hate. These are all derived from lust. Okay? So you're going to get yourself fucked up if you do this. In the first place, you didn't have to do this. There was this breaking of the law that you allowed to break it. And the only way you would not break it if you have that internal nobility and justice within yourself, and you say, yes, I'm allowed to break it, I could do this, but I won't, because I'm not going to be corrupted by power. Because that makes me lose everything. It makes me lose love and even power in the end. So this is a stupid move, and we don't do it. Okay, so this is where we limit. You are the only operating power within the deeper dimensions of consciousness, where it's the quality of experience, the thematic, the roles, and everything that you want. You're totally, ought to create that in your life. That's why you're here. That thing you kind of owe it to yourself, and the universe owes you. But then when the matrix comes up and basically gives you these kind of things and say like, okay, reject it, like, look, this is exactly what you wanted, but reject it from it. And then there's this obsession, then because there's a rejection, there's an obsession, and then all sorts of lustful connections and whatnot, and it's crap. It's completely toxic. And when I was watching certain type of people doing this, and they're supposed to be like, like quite spiritual and evolved and understand how this magic works and stuff like that, something freaking toxic I saw in that. Toxic, super toxic. And I was like, fuck, that's, no, you're not a lady, you're a witch, you're a fucking witch. Maybe even unbeknownst to you. And also, I'm not saying this as a judgment, because like I said, everybody will make that mistake at least once, and so have I. And then I realized, oh shit, it's nothing like when you're casting and people may be seemingly perfect for the role, but there's something that does not fit. You have to say that, okay, there's no ability, if like availability, they're not choosing it, even though if they're perfect for the role, you got to just say, okay, that's not it then, and keep on casting for somebody who does fit that role perfectly and is eager and willing to engage it, right? This idea that like, oh, you're not going to find somebody who's fitting that role so well, and so then you insist on being that. But no, you will find somebody who fits the role even better and who's also available for that. And you won't need to use all this wastage of energy of trying to break these patterns that you're never supposed to break in the first place. Okay? So you don't waste this pattern, excuse me, this energy on this uh, forcing and infringing upon the free will. Just don't do that anymore. This is why in some movies, I watched this fruity movie, 80s movie, Legend, recently. It was like a full of mythology, and it's worth watching for the mythology side of it because you can see it everywhere. And now that, like, if you're alchemizing and you know um, playing that game from the other side, you start realizing these patterns, these these mythologies. What is it symbolizing? The unicorn, the rainbow, and so on. Because you're living it, you know that what that is, what kind of states there are, and what kind of parts of consciousness they are, and so on. So it's very interesting to watch. This is why I love cartoons because cartoons are packed with mythology. To watch a cartoon from the perspective of the mythology is super fascinating, and then from the other perspective of just goofiness and and silliness and all that other stuff. So it's like one side is super mythological and it was completely goofy, and that's why I love cartoons. Not these agenda-driven cartoons, of course, but real cartoons. Okay, so that's what's going on, and you fuck up once, and this is where I hope exactly what's going to happen with Trump. That Trump's going to reel back in and realize, okay, ooh, I'm this ain't right. This ain't right because I can't go crazy and drunk with power. I gotta reel back in a little bit. A lot of moves that I did, good, but now I'm a little bit drunk with power. I gotta ease off a little bit and understand um, that you don't have to break the free will on that level. Just continue doing your level in your jurisdiction. And I'm talking about with everybody. This is why right now it's so important to understand how to calibrate your consciousness, how to play this game of life. It's right now. It's almost like you either swim it or you drown. That's what it feels like to me. Like um, this is, like I said before, I feel like a school is over. This very reason of why. This very reason of why we're here. Even the school is over. Now it's a different type of time cycle. It is a it is university, I suppose, like the school is done, but now there's another level. Like the school is done, now it's time to actually apply what you learn and continue learning at the deeper levels now. So yeah, that's the limit and the limitation and the boundary that we're all supposed to be sort of respecting. I'm telling this from my experience because there's so much waste of energy, whereas the entire energy was needed to be put on alchemizing that thing inside of you that is insisting on something that is not available. Okay, super super important. And I saw these women. They played dark games and everything, and they justify this as like, oh, that's karma, isn't it? And then like, no, bitch, you're doing it. What the fuck? Like that's darker what you say. Like we're trying to make another person jealous and whatnot, right? Well, you're not available, so I'm gonna make you jealous then. Or maybe I feel like you're not available. I've not even tried, but like, hey, Let's just make you jealous, all that stuff. So these are all Machiavellian dark pattern games that does not give you love or power in the end. And I'm not saying this is like because of like any kind of light is better than the dark and stuff like that, right? Light is, of course, better than the dark in the sense that it is an intelligent choice. But dark is necessary for you to find that light within yourself. So that's why, yeah, use the dark, go dark once, right? Because everybody's gonna go dark once anyway on that particular thing. Go dark once, see where the pattern is headed, and don't continue this pattern, right? Because you can go dark a little bit, right? And then you see the pattern. I was like, okay, I see the pattern. That does not seem okay. What is the other way? And you can find the other way and realize, like, oh, I can still fulfill my soul desire. I just don't have to be a tyrant about it. And you do it. So that's intelligent, right? But it's not like you just listen to somebody, you actually fucked up once. So that's good. But continuing that cycle and trying to see like how can it be better at that? Okay, that's now you go dark. Now you lose my respect and anyone else who, you see what I'm trying to say? Now you become sort of like an enemy rather than just somebody who just made a little mistake and self-corrected. Now you're going into the dark and it's danger to become full retard to play that level of the game. Right? And this is what Krishnamurti was saying as well. He was saying, you only need to see the danger once. If you see the danger, you see what's going to lead up to it, you already saw it, you don't ever fucking do it. Now, so of course, it's a different level of intelligence talking, but this is true. It is true. It is not saying just be gullible and listen to somebody. No, go ahead and try it out. Try it out honestly, deeply, and once fully. Boom. But then immediately recalibrate it. Receive the feedback from it. Recalibrate it. Do not double down on it. Right? And don't say like, well, I was stupid or whatever, or like, oh, that's mistake, I'm guilty. No. Make that mistake like gangster all the way and learn from it as much as possible from it. Like that. You see? And don't repeat it. Because life comes in time cycles. You don't have to, on a new cycle, when new time cycle arrives, that pattern may not be there anymore because you've dealt with it. And now this time you know how to deal with it in the right way, not like sort of the dark way, right? And matrix, meaning like these general thoughts patterns from the ego, it always wants to get you into that game that you're not meant to be playing, right? Playing with your ego as well, like, well, you're not a man if you don't do this, if you don't fight for your woman or whatever, or you're not a woman if you see what I'm trying to say, like none of that is necessary. Don't get caught, because if somebody plays with your ego, it's like, well, you're not a man enough, and then it's like, well, I am man enough, and then what, you're gonna prove it that you're a man enough, and by that you're gonna prove it exactly that you're not man enough because you fell for the trap. That's why, no, it's masculinity. That is not the masculinity. People call toxic masculinity. Toxic masculinity is not masculinity. That's why I would not. You see what I'm trying to say? Masculinity is masculinity. Femininity is femininity. Toxic femininity is not femininity. You need another word for it. Otherwise, you just, taint the word unnecessarily. It's, how can you call something that is immature, toxic maturity? No. Masculinity means a certain type of maturation. When a person is not yet intelligent enough to realize that you make a mistake, one, learn from it and go the right way and doubling down on that direction, that is lack of intelligence. It's just simply immaturity. So that's not masculinity, and it's both sides as well. When women as well, when um, when it's time for them to see what is femininity and how you can deal with the situation in a feminine way through feminine lens, and to use your feminine power, so to speak, and ability to control the field, just like masculine is learning ability to control the uh, uh, the patterns. Femininity is about controlling the field and creating the field based on the right situation, and masculinity is creating the patterns based on the right situation. Okay, and that's what creates this performance of life, the art of life, whatever you do, whatever you perform, right? Because you always play some sort of role. So yeah, so you're becoming this, you know, the 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 writer, but you know what the writer is doing. The director, you know what the director is doing. The actor, and you know exactly what the actor is doing, and you know the principles of the game. And you once you learn these principles, you don't break them, right? You can break them, but the fact that you choose not to break them is it just speaks that some intelligence within your soul already is there as individual. This was not forced upon you, right? Like you say, like, well, ideally, if you live in reality where everybody can never make a mistake, then nobody can become an individual, right? And so this is like how we become individual that has the capacity of the unique individual, and then the universality and the capacity of universal forces in one. And as I always say, in infinity within temporal. And that's the game. That's why you need to play this game. That's what you gain from it. You gain your soul. That's what you gain from it. This is why right now everything that's going on, it's about the almost like a test to see if you're going to choose your soul or your ego. And you got to let everybody choose theirs. Of course the ego will perish. It's not even a question, but some just have to perish, and maybe they need to learn like this massive lesson where it's like the entire scale of life was the entire life went the wrong way. And then maybe next life they're going to look at it like, okay, well, that was fucked up, so maybe this life I'm going to understand the point of the game and I'm not going to go full retard, right? Maybe, but that's okay. So there are these laws, and you can break them in your imagination even, or you may not break them and use the energy appropriately and well, and without any kind of force. That's why I say, like, the only force that you need to use is the force of will in the physical to get shit done. That's what you need to use your will. Don't waste your will on anything else. Use your will to get shit done. Do the things that are right to do. That's where you use your will. So there, I'm talking about that particular pattern that you have to ingrain within your soul, and that can only done through alchemy. Because reality is that you can say and you believe and say, well, I'm not supposed to feel this feeling of rejection, so I'm not even look at it. No, like, you look at it, it's like, okay, there was compatibility but no availability, and so that created a certain type of tension within you. Now that you have to calibrate it and derive that type of new approach to life, and realize, like, oh, okay, I see what's going on. You alchemize that. So then whenever there is compatibility but no availability, you respect that fact that there's a compatibility but no availability, right? It's very liberating, actually. It's freeing. There's no clinging to it anymore. You just go with it. Compatibility, no availability, all good. So there's no that emotional attachment there anymore. That emotional attachment is actually ego is trying to have the control over the reality and insisting, saying, no, I must fulfill my soul desire and I'm willing to break the rules to do so. Well, that's not soul desire, it becomes ego tantrum. So that's not respectable. This should not be respected. You see what I'm trying to say? Like, um, should definitely not be respected. And you know, what is the saddest thing? That sometimes people don't even see that there is an availability there, but they come in with already the assumption that there isn't, and so then already play these like dark games, right? That's like the saddest thing, is because the universe already, for example, may bring them what they want, but they're so fucking caught into this playing this dark game and assuming that they have to manipulate. And like, this is the part of it what psychology did to people, you see. And like, this is why you see me um criticizing all these psychologists who created the models up to this point, because they made it worse. They made people, person who's learning that, the way they the way they presented it is making people very bad. It's making people worse. Okay, it's just the truth. This is why I have no respect to Jung at all. People's like, oh, Jung this, Jung that, Jung this, Jung that, as if it's somebody who developed a model of consciousness that worked. Look around, people. It did not work. It made it worse. Look at all these people losing their heads, talking about nothing, playing and manipulating each other. Does that seem like somebody contributed well to the society? No, they did not. They got so many things wrong. They approach it all backwards. And it was all done from the ego. And that is why it did not work. They want they you see what I'm trying to say? So that's exactly what you're not supposed to be doing. It's the opposite. You're supposed to be doing almost the opposite of what these people did. Rather than investigating and analyzing what they did with the consciousness, inquire into it. Rather than assume that the analysis will be able to explain to you of how consciousness works. No, you just took a dysfunctional, like, time uh span, or not, I shouldn't say span, like it's just basically one shot, frame, boom, and you described it, and you described everything. That's like, well, that's how everything works. No, you just described one frame that is dysfunctional, which, by the way, analyzing it and learning about it just makes it worse. What I'm saying and pointing to is like, you have to do the opposite. You don't analyze it. You go into the fields, inquire to the depths of the feeling, where it's coming from, what's the root cause of it, which is a feeling. Go through the negative thoughts and the negative emotions and the negative feeling, uncover that, and you realize, oh, okay, that's what's been freaking bothering me. And this is one of those things, what's been bothering me. Like I said, some people don't even see that the availability is there, and they think that they have to gain the person, rather than being okay with, to say, like, well, let's just see if there's an availability there, right? They don't even want to get rejected on that level. So they're so far removed that they just assume that they will be rejected, so they have to game each other, right? And this is why, like, like people on YouTube, they talk about this as if it's just normal. Like what? No, it is. First of all, it's not normal, and it is supposed to be um, condemned. Actually, I would say. But anyway, so going further now. Okay, so there's this inquiry for availability. It isn't like in a consciousness. Like if you imagine everything as just like this one holographic bubble that you can tune to one address or another and stuff like that, and you're seeking out the compatibility, right? But then another side of it is like you have to allow availability to be there naturally without you insisting upon that. And that's what does that mean? That means that you're scanning, and in a way your old self would say like, well, you're risking a rejection because now you're looking for the compatibility where it may not be available, and that will hurt you, right? But if you alchemize everything, you don't have that fear. You're just scanning for availability where there is compatibility. And availability is a certain type of feeling. Like I know it's like it is a type of ease that is just it's flowing, it's right. It is like, oh right, everything is clicking. There's compatibility and then there's availability. You know? And that is just insanely awesome feeling when everything is sort of like clicks like that. But you cannot discover that availability without um, checking, because you may be attracted to something that or someone that is compatible, right? That's why you're attracted, but there's no availability, right? But you cannot see. This is one of the things that like I really hated when a woman would do that to me. Um, there might be the interest, right? And I would be willing even to explore that interest, attraction, some sort of like attraction. And there's something there that's interesting, and then of course you say like, well, I feel something. Let's explore it, right? This is totally normal, totally fine. There's no assumption. There's no insistence. Nothing. There's something that is there. Let's explore it, right? But to explore it, you got to open up to it and risk that sort of like disappointment and that rejection that like, oh, I felt the compatibility, but it might not be exactly about that, or it's different. Like it's all right. Like you got to be okay with that, right? And this is what like I do not like when women don't even open up to explore what kind of connection is, because the reality is that when two people open up to each other um fully, with full transparency, the clarity arises, and there is no like a pain or rejection or anything like that. The clarity is there. It's like, oh, I see how it all works. Okay, okay, I see. Right? And then you learn about each other, and you can learn whatever. Like, oh, okay, so we're here this at this point in our lives to help each other out for this particular reason, to reflect to each other something that is important to learn, right? But we're not a couple, right? And everything was learned, and nobody's gonna get hurt, rejected, or anything like that, because there was a willingness to explore the that type of connection like that. And then there's clarity there, and then you continue relationship as it is because you have clarity between you two now. There's no fear of rejection. Now you can be real friends if that's what you found out upon the investigation, right? You have not went into sex prematurely. You did not go into any kind of romanticizing prematurely. You did not do it. You just, let's see what that is first of all, and that's where you got to start. Like, I don't know, this is supposed to be normal because, like, for example, in astral, when you're traveling or when you're investigating that type of state and that interaction, that's the protocol of interaction between two beings. It is you know, boom, there's some compatibility there, attraction, interest. Let's see what it's all about. That's what it's all about. Do you want to engage in this or not? And if it's like one says like yes, and other says no, then there's nothing, and then move on to another one. Right? To be able to be living life like that. And you also need to say as well, what part of my lesson was it like, okay, if there's something there, you feel some type of attraction compatibility, and you open up, but they don't, it doesn't matter. You basically don't spend any kind of time lingering there. There was an invitation, there was a refusal of invitation, you're moving on. Is someone else gonna fit that role? So there's that type of natural interaction that's supposed to take place. And that's why right now I don't mind if I just don't like when people say that they're like so, open and everything, and they act like so spiritual, but they don't even open up to investigate the connection between each other. It's like, well, you're not. There's nothing. What is this? You still it's still kindergarten games that you're playing, acting all spiritual and deep, but you're afraid to even open up to see what kind of connection is there, right? Trust me, guys, that's not fun at all. I know in the movies this is sort of like makes good drama, and if you're into drama, if you haven't lived drama yet, then go ahead, try to live drama. Like I said, you know go fucked up once at least. But I already had that. I already lived drama. I'm not interested in that type of drama. I'm more interested in creative and playfulness type of thing. And drama to me now is like a humor. I don't want to live drama. I just want to joke about this, you know. And fake drama is fun, but to live it is not fun. And drama always happens whenever there is some sort of breakage in that type of you know interaction. And so the art is not even how to communicate, it is about the very protocol of how to establish communications and respect that, right? It's quite simple. It's like you feel it, right? You feel it with the person. You can bring them in your imagination and try to imagine something, and if there's like a block in your chest, then okay, you already know. But when you are thinking about something and someone, and you're imagining something, or may not even imagine, you just go by the feel, and then there's this easiness that's going on. That's how you know. That's right. um, you don't need to do this. At first I thought that you have to do this. This is not right. Like, would you have a person in your mind, and then you have that block, rather than you trying to alchemize that block between you two about that person, like you're just basically trying to make that person do something, right? You don't even go there. You see that there's a person, there's that feeling, go into the general, the feeling disappears, and the state of consciousness that your soul desires is there already as general, as universal. You gotta let them to choose this, and then if you think about a specific person, or maybe they even appear. I say, okay, this is the signal that I'm beaming out right now. This is the role. This is the game that I would like to play. who wants to play with me this game role, there's this like you, and then somebody comes in and that may come as specific person. It's like, hey, I want to play this role. All right, cool. But then you don't feel any kind of blockness about that specific person. This is what I've been having problems with. Because you do the general alchemy, and that's great. And then you have to do like a certain specific calibration about what you want, but you got to respect that type of. Okay, let's just say this. So you can connect with this universal, archetypical soul, which is real soul, but it doesn't have necessarily, unless it takes the unique expression, it doesn't really have uniqueness. Um, well, I shouldn't say it doesn't have uniqueness. If it does have uniqueness, it does have what it has a freedom to be any unique expression. That's what it has. But there's also the reality in astral, when you go into the astral from the 6D and those universal layers, you have uniqueness there, you have individuality. So when you're interacting on that level with souls, you can scan their current status, right? Like what is their view about this particular role and whatnot, right? Like you can do that. Okay, but that's the world that you got to respect of whatever they decide to do. Okay, because evil actually is a breaking of the free will, you see. Of course, you know in the physical world, um, sometimes you have to obstruct somebody's will. Of course, I mean, you don't go general on this,